Picture this. It's December 24th, 2016, Christmas Eve. You're sitting in a crowded, pitch-black movie theater. The smell of stale popcorn is lingering in the air, and the glowing screen is lighting up the faces of the families all around you. Everyone is completely entranced. But Alex Hormozi, he is definitely not watching the movie. He's just staring blankly at the screen, totally terrified, with his heart racing at 100 beats a minute. Why? Well, just a few hours earlier, he got one of those gut-wrenching phone calls. A payment processor flagged his account for quote-unquote irregular activity as a precaution, and they're holding $120,000 of his money hostage for the next 6 months. So right now, he is in an absolute visceral panic.
Think about that for a second. What happens when you owe 22 grand and you literally have nothing left? To make matters even worse, Alex is trying to run his business from his girlfriend's parents' house. He's sitting scrunched up in this tiny little chair in a toddler's playroom, just surrounded by all these motionless toys. Talk about feeling like a complete failure, playing dress up, right? And here's the absolute worst part of the whole shebang. He owes a massive $22,000 commission to a salesman who happens to have a pregnant wife and a baby on the way. And that commission? It's for the exact sales that were just locked up by the payment processor.
Knowing it wasn't his money to keep, and honestly, without even giving himself a single second to overthink it, he wired the absolute last of his funds to that salesman. And that left his bank account with exactly $1,036.14. Literally, his entire life's work up to that point had just vanished into thin air. He officially had less than nothing.
But just 2 days later, we're talking the day right after Christmas, Alex made this massive pivot. He decided to just gamble the whole thing. He took an old business credit card that happened to have a really high limit, and he just turned the ads on. He committed to spending $3,300 a day in ad spend to launch 6 gyms simultaneously. That means he was going into debt at a rate of $412 per working hour, using money he absolutely positively did not have. It was literally the ultimate Hail Mary pass.
And you know what? That massive gamble? It actually paid off in a way literally nobody expected. By the end of January 2017, they had collected over $100,000 in cash. The universe actually caught the Hail Mary. He went from looking up bankruptcy lawyers to pulling himself entirely back from the brink, and ultimately, that crazy pivot laid the foundation for a multi-million-dollar portfolio of companies.
Now, you might be wondering, how in the world do you engineer a miracle like that? How do you go from total financial ruin to just printing cash?
Well, to understand the actionable business epiphany that made this insane growth possible, in this explainer, we're going to step away from the personal crisis for a minute and travel back in time to a Las Vegas pet house. At this point, Alex was just a clueless 23-year-old wearing a free t-shirt, completely anxious, totally surrounded by highly successful business owners, and realizing he knew absolutely nothing about business.
So while he's at this mastermind in Vegas, the organizer, a guy named Travis Jones, noticed that Alex was just in way over his head. So he pulled him aside and asked him a really simple question. Do you want to know the secret to sales? And then he dropped this absolute piece of life-changing advice. He said, make people an offer so good they would feel stupid saying no. Honestly, this one single sentence shifted Alex's entire worldview. He realized right then and there that he didn't need to focus on sleazy sales tactics or try to be some master closer. He just needed to build irresistible value.
Alex actually hand-wrote this quote down. He underlined it, circled it, the whole 9 yards. Because the core takeaway from this source material is that you actually don't need to be a highly skilled salesperson if your offer is doing all the heavy lifting for you. Think about it. The offer is the literal starting point of any transaction. It is exactly what you are providing in exchange for their hard-earned money. Okay, let's dive into the core business mechanics that make mastering your offer so incredibly vital. To put it simply, maintenance is a total myth. The harsh reality of business is that the stock market grows at roughly 9% a year. So what does that mean for you? It means if your business isn't growing at least 9% a year, you are actually falling behind. You are literally either growing or you are dying. There's really no in between. So if simply maintaining your business is impossible, how do we actually grow? Well, there are literally only 3 paths available to stay ahead of that market stagnation. Step 1, you get more customers. Step 2, you increase their average purchase value. And step 3, you get them to buy more times. That is it. While there are a million different marketing tactics floating around out there, every single one of them boils down to just these 3 fundamental steps.
Now, before we go any further, we really need to lock down the essential math behind these paths. First up is gross profit. This is strictly your revenue minus the direct cost of servicing one additional customer. So let's say you sell agency services for $1,000 a month, and it costs you $100 in labor to run that specific client's ads. Your gross profit is $900. It's absolutely crucial to understand that gross profit does not include your indirect costs. So leave out your office rents, your admin software, or generic overhead. We are strictly talking about the direct cost of fulfillment here.
And that feeds directly into our next really critical metric, which is lifetime value. This is your gross profit multiplied by the number of purchases an average customer is going to make over their entire lifespan with your business. Guys, if you aren't calculating this, you are flying completely blind. Keeping your customers valuable, either by increasing how often they purchase or raising their average cart value, is absolutely critical to your long-term survival.
So, how does all this math relate to your everyday struggle as an entrepreneur? Well, it all comes down to what we'll call the two big kahunas of business problems: not having enough clients and not having enough cash. When you don't have enough clients, the natural instinct is to just slash your prices to get more people in the door, right? But here's the catch. When you slash prices, you completely cannibalize your profit margins, which drains your cash. You end up working twice as hard just to keep the lights on, essentially buying yourself a terrible job instead of building an actual business.
And what causes this race to the bottom in the first place? It's something called the commodity problem. Basically, when a market sees products as totally interchangeable, like comparing apples to apples, they are always going to default to buying the absolute cheapest option. If a prospect looks at your service and then looks at a competitor's service and thinks, these are pretty much the exact same, well, the only differentiator you have left is price. And trust me, you do not want to be competing on price.
This dynamic creates a pretty brutal divide. Commoditized markets are entirely price-driven. The marketplace just drives the price down through brutal competition until your margins are paper thin. It is a really miserable reality. But contrast that with differentiated markets. These are value-driven. When you have a highly differentiated, super unique offer, you can actually command a premium price because you are no longer easily compared to the rest of the pack.
So the ultimate solution to this whole commodity problem is actually really simple, but it's totally profound. You have to sell in a category of one. This means creating an offer that is so entirely unique, it basically operates in a vacuum. The prospect is no longer sitting there choosing between your product and your competitor's product. They are choosing between your product and absolutely nothing else. Why? Because nothing else like it even exists. To actually achieve that category of one, you need what's called the Grand Slam offer. This is the framework that allows you to charge those premium prices and systematically get paid to acquire new customers. It's a combination of a few things: an attractive promotion to get eyeballs, an unmatchable value proposition so the product operates in that vacuum, a premium price to guarantee your profit margins, an unbeatable guarantee to completely reverse the risk, and finally, a favorable money model, which means your payment terms actually fund your business growth. When you stack all of these distinct components together, you literally become the house.
So, we've explored how a single, powerfully structured offer literally pulled an entrepreneur back from the brink of bankruptcy to build an absolute empire. The challenge I'm leaving you with today is this: how will you differentiate your offer today? Look closely at your own business, apply this specific framework right now, and stop competing on price. It's time to escape the commodity trap, craft your very own Grand Slam offer, and finally build the exact business freedom you originally set out to achieve. Are you ready to make an offer they'd feel stupid saying no to?